It's been said that hope is not a strategy, and that may be true. However, it's one of the most powerful motivators in the world. On Unyielding Hope, we're going to take life head on, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We talk about and share stories and experiences of the challenges we face and how you can find hope in the midst of some of your most challenging times and circumstances. So sit back, relax, and get ready for your weekly dose of hope. All right, everybody, welcome to Unyielding Hope. I'm Terry Gurno. I'm really excited to be here. I've looked forward to this day for a long time. And to be honest, I really never saw myself as somebody who would do a show or a podcast or anything like that. And I'm more of a communicator live in front of a live audience. I've learned how to write. I've written a couple of books and used to do a blog for a long time. And so, but I never thought about doing this. And one of the things I wanted to, talk about today as we kick this thing off is, how did I get here? How did I get to where I'm at today? Meaning in front of this microphone. And there's a lot of behind the scenes things, how did I get here to this day in July, So it was just over a year ago that I started feeling a little bit different. I hadn't felt this way for a long time. I noticed when I was going upstairs that I would get a little shortness of breath. And I noticed that that was happening more and more, and it was getting more severe to where the point where if I was mowing my lawn, I would have to sit down, 4 or 5 times to take a break. My wife noticed it. She was a little bit, I don't know if she was concerned. She just noticed it, thought maybe I was getting older and out of shape and just didn't have as much stamina or endurance or, in that kind of a thing. And so anyways, it got worse and worse. And then it was almost a year ago in August that I was at my sister's, and they live over in Washington, and Gig Harbor. They have a house right on the water. They have a big boat, and we were out on the boat for a few days. And when we got back, my sister asked me to help carry some stuff with a wagon, so pull a wagon up to their house to unload it from the boat. And it wasn't a big wagon, it wasn't heavy, and I said, no problem. And I started walking up this hill, and it was not very far, it's not that steep, but I got halfway up and I thought, man, I have to rest. And I was really out of breath. I was really tired. I was actually fatigued just from that little bit. And I finally rested and I went up the rest of the way, dropped the stuff off at the front of the house, walked across the street to where we were staying in their guest house. And I told my wife, I said, Nancy, I have to sit here. I can't do anything. I need to sit here for a while and recover. And it was so different for me. And it really got my attention. It scared me just a little bit. And so when I got home, back to Coeur d'Alene is where I live, I wanted to get a hold of my cardiologist and get an appointment. So I called them, and they were busy. Nobody was answering the phone. I was on hold then for 45 minutes just waiting for somebody to pick up, and I just wanted to get an appointment. Well, it's not that far of a drive from my house, so I decided, hey, let's get in the car, let's drive down there. So we did. I walked in and I said, hey, I just want to set an appointment. She says, no problem. And she said, okay, that's probably going to be about 30 days out. She gave me the date, and I said, great. And then she stopped and she said, so what kind of signs are you having? And I shared with her some of the things that I just shared with you. And she said, let me see if we have our triage nurse would like to talk to you and see you. And I said, okay. And she came out and said, yep, she wants to see you. So I went in there, talked to her. She took my blood pressure, listened to my heart, different things like that. And she said, listen, I can't tell you to go to the emergency, but I can strongly recommend that you need to do that, and you need to do that now. And so I wasn't feeling that bad at the moment. I really didn't want to go. I felt like it would be a waste of time. And but I went, not happily, but because I knew it was going to be hours, right? Just to find out that in that moment there was probably nothing wrong. And so, of course, they checked me in. They were looking to see if I was having a heart attack, and I knew I wasn't. And so after several hours, they said, hey, good news, you're not having a heart attack. And I knew that. So I didn't know. It felt like a waste of time. It's like, why did I even come here? However, here's what they said. And they had it in their orders that you need to see your cardiologist in 3 days, within 3 days. So that took me from 30 days out to 3 days. which I was grateful for. And so I went in and I had my appointment, talked to my cardiologist. He set up some tests and stuff. And so I had a nuclear stress test, an echocardiogram, and I had to wear a heart monitor for 48 hours. And the echocardiogram showed that my heart was mechanically in great shape, no problem. The monitor that I was wearing didn't indicate any problem. But this nuclear stress test showed some irregularities, and so I remember that call. Hey, Terry, we got your nuclear stress test results, and it did show some irregularities. So we need you to come in and do a heart cath. And this is where they go through your groin, up your artery and into your heart, and they're able to put some dye in there and kind of see how the blood's flowing and different things like that. I never had one. I've heard of that, but the idea that they were going to do that didn't sit well with me. I wasn't excited about it. I was very nervous. I thought, man, what's that going to feel like? And I had all these questions and preconceived ideas. Well, the day came, and they told me, they said, now, Terry, what we're going to find is one of three things. Number one, whatever's going on, we can deal with it with medicine, or you might have to have a stent. And if you have to have a stent, we'll do it right then and there so you don't have to make another appointment. You'll leave with that stent in you. Or the third case, you might have to have open heart surgery. And so as I heard that, it didn't even dawn on me that the third option would even be in play. I thought probably some medication, maybe a stent, but I doubt it. So the day came, I went in, they did the heart cath. When I came out, the doctor told my wife and I, Terry, you need to have open heart surgery, and you need 5 bypasses, a quintuple bypass. And I'll tell you what, I mean, you could have floored me. I was not prepared for that at all. And so, we walked down that road and we went to the doctor and then the surgeon, and she explained to us what was going to happen. And we started going through all the steps of getting ready to have that open heart surgery. And we set the date, and I went in. And I'll tell you what, I was nervous. I was nervous. The way that I would describe it, and I've said this to a few people, is if two people, one on each side of me, had my arm, they were pulling me forward. My feet were not moving. They were dragging me. It was one of those things I knew I had to do, but I didn't want to do. I wasn't doing it willingly because, I had heard that they have these heart surgeries all the time, and there's, very few, not very often are there, complications. They do it all the time. It's highly successful. But here's what I realized. That's great when you're just talking in, generally. But when it's you and they say you're going to have this done, all of a sudden you begin to think through all the things that could go wrong. And I did. And I was nervous. One of the things I was thinking about is I know they use some sort of a saw to cut the sternum. What if it goes too deep? And these were the kinds of things that I was, thinking. And, I just heard other things about the surgery and how they, spread your ribs open and they clamp them down and all this kind of stuff that didn't sound really exciting to me. But anyways, as the day approached, I had to ask myself this question. And this is important about why we're here today and why we'll be here week after week with Unyielding Hope. I had to ask myself this question. How have I lived my life up to this point? And if I don't come out of this for whatever reason, am I okay? Am I okay with that? With the way that I've lived my life to this point? I had to ask myself that question, and I really had to think about that. I was thinking about the things that I've done, the goals that I've had, what I've accomplished, thinking about the relationships that I've had. Have I done the things that I really want to do in the community? Have I told the people that I love them? Have I asked forgiveness from the people that I've wronged? Have I forgiven people that had wronged me or hurt me? I'm just thinking through all of this kind of stuff. Now, obviously, there's a lot more that I want to do in life, a lot more. I want to see my oldest daughter married. I want to see more grandkids. My wife and I have some trips that we really want to take. There's just some things that we want to do. And so anyways, but am I okay? I had to answer that question. And I answered it with a yes, I'm okay. And it is amazing that when I did that, the peace that came over me. I just had peace. And I was able to go through that surgery and then the complications that I had afterwards. And I had some complications. I had blood clots in my lungs. I had 3 of my bypasses failed. And this kind of stuff, my doctor said, doesn't happen. And so they said I was an anomaly. We don't see stuff like this happen. And usually if a bypass fails, it's not for 10 years. And I was just a few weeks out of my surgery. And so all of this stuff was going on. But through all of that, I had a peace. I really did. And I was sharing some of that on social media. And I have a really good, and I mentioned on social media that, hey, I think I'm going to blog about this stuff. And I had a friend that contacted me and said, Terry, I know that you want to blog, but can I recommend that instead of that, you do a podcast or a show or something like that? And I'd never thought of that. And I said, I'd think about that and I'd do that. And so that's really one of the things that led us to this point is I had a lot of people responding to the journey that I was on. I had people, as I talked about the symptoms that I had and different things like that, I had people reaching out to me privately about, hey, I'm experiencing those too. What do you think I should do? I had another person from another state halfway across the United States reach out to me and say, this is what my husband's doing. This is what he's been told. Can you give us some advice on what we should do now? And so, again, I can't give medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I don't play any of those on TV, nothing like that. But I could share from my experience and what I learned, and that's what I was able to do. And so I found that people were, listening to what I was saying, and it was important to them, and they were, getting some practical help, and just, getting the maybe the strength or the courage or whatever to find their way to move forward. The hope that was beyond what they were going through, and so it just made sense. But really, and the rest of the story, once I got my heart fixed and I was all done, that took about 2 months. I got home. The day after I got home, I started having excruciating abdominal pain, really, really bad. And I just thought it was my body that was detoxing from all the medication, all the dyes, all the contrasting medication I had from the CT scans, the nuclear stress tests, and all of these other things that I had in that very short period of time. And so I just kind of blew it off. But I finally ended up in the emergency. It was so bad that I ended up in the emergency, and I was there and by myself. My wife was watching our 2 grandkids, and so she couldn't be there. I drove myself, and they took a CAT scan, and they put me into this other room. I was all by myself, and I was just waiting. And finally they came, and they wanted to talk to me in a patient consultation room. Now, I've seen this happen on TV, on medical shows, and that to me is not a great sign. And so my wife wasn't there. She was on her way, but I got in there. And as soon as I got in and the doctor came in, my wife showed up. And so I said, listen, can you wait till she's here? She came in, and the ER doctor said, Terry, you have an obstruction in your colon. And it's a pretty big one. And so we've asked the surgeon on staff to come down, take a look at this and talk to you. So he came in, he showed us the CT scan. And I'll tell you what, it was, man, it was bad. And I knew it was bad by the way I was feeling. Now I was seeing the inside, and I thought, boy, that's pretty bad. That's a significant, blockage. And so basically he said, we need to get that out of there. And there's 3 reasons this could have happened. Number one, there was a blood clot, and because that's the furthest point away in your colon from the artery that's down here, it could be that it didn't get any blood, and that would happen. The other one is if you've had interrupted blood flow like you've had, that could have caused it. And the third one, he said, would be cancer. I didn't think cancer at all. And so he said, if I were you, I would go into the hospital today, and we need to start doing some things. And it was really difficult because I was on 2 blood thinners, and they had to get a team of people to figure out how were we going to operate on him without him bleeding out, all this kind of stuff. So it was very difficult. And so anyways, they got the cardiologist, pulmonologist, they got my cardiac surgeon, and a vascular surgeon, and they all came together, and they made this plan. And so anyways, I went in, and they took out 2 feet of my colon, 2 feet. Now the interesting thing was after the surgery, the doctor went out and told my wife and told me later, hey, we took out 2 feet of Terry's colon, but here's the interesting thing. Terry's colon was 2 feet longer than the average colon. And so actually he has a normal size colon. And so we thought that was pretty good. In fact, when I was talking to my doctor a few days later, he said, hey, God must have known that you didn't need that. And so he just gave you a little extra so we could take it out when the time was right. And the time was right. So anyways, they sent that into pathology. He said, listen, we got all the margins. We did a clean surgery. You've got clean margins. And now we'll send it into pathology. But he said, man, I've seen a lot of tumors. I highly doubt this is cancer, which made me feel good, made my wife feel good. It's what we were hoping for. And so it was a few days later that he came into my room kind of late at night. It was after 7 o'clock. My wife wasn't there. She had gone to see our grandson's Christmas program. And I told her, don't come back, just go home, get some rest. And so I was all alone. And he came in and I saw that he had some papers. So I knew that he was going to tell me what the deal was. And, he just, hey, how you doing? How you feeling? And then he said, just like this, he said, well, it's cancer and it's stage 3B. And I'll tell you what, I was all alone, just me and the doctor. And man, that hit me so hard. I was alone, and then I really felt lonely in that moment. That's not something that any of us plan for. There's no contingency. There's no preparation. It just comes at you like, here it is. And man, I sat there, and we talked a little bit. And when he left, I called my wife, and I said, honey, it's stage 3 colon cancer. And of course, it was a very emotional conversation. And then somebody came in the door. The door was behind me. Someone came in. So I said, hey, honey, I got somebody coming in. I got to hang out. I'll call you back. And it happened to be my best friend, Mike Rima, and Roxanne Rima, his wife. He happens to be my pastor, not only my best friend, but he came in, and I just felt like, man, that's what I needed. Number one, I didn't want to be alone, but to have him come in, our relationship goes back 32 plus years. We've been through a lot together. This was the right people to step into my room, and so we just talked about that. And then when they left, I was able to call my wife. We talked more. But here's the interesting thing. My immediate thought was, is Nancy going to be okay? Have I set her up for when I'm not here? I immediately went through, I'm not going to be here much longer. And I don't know if that's normal, if most people that hear that think that, but I did. And I went down that road for about 15 minutes, and then I realized, I snapped out of it. I said, come on, Terry, don't go there yet. You're going to get out of the hospital. You're going to go home. You're going to make a plan. You've got time. And I just, for whatever reason, I was snapped out of it. And here's the thing that blew me away. And it's simple, but I slept so good that night. I'd been not sleeping good until that, till that night. But for whatever reason, and I thought I'd stay up all night thinking about this, imagining things, but man, I slept all night, and I had a great night's sleep. And, I don't read anything more into that than what it is. I just, for whatever reason, I did. But, I started thinking about, hey, we've got life ahead of us. We've got things to do, things to say. We can put things in place. We've got time to take care of stuff. And I think maybe that thought maybe kind of helped me do that, realizing, hey, you don't have to throw in the towel right now. You got stuff to do. And so I remember the next morning I got up real early and I went out to a waiting room that had a big window and I could look outside because I wanted to feel as normal as I could because I wasn't feeling normal, to be honest. I really wasn't. But I wanted to feel as normal as I could. So I went out to this place and I had a bunch of thank you cards. And I wanted to write those cards to the nurses and some of the staff because I'll tell you, I was treated so well. The care that they provided for me was so good. I was so grateful for the care that I had. This journey that I've been on over this since September, so about 9 months or so, this journey that I've been on, nobody prepares for this. Nobody plans for it. It comes unexpectedly out of nowhere. And man, it hit us. But the one thing I really believed is I had a doctor that really cared about me. Man, I mean, it was so good. The way that he talked to me, the way that he explained things. In fact, there's a moment that really touched me, and that is the night he told me that I had cancer. He asked me if I had had dinner or was hungry or anything. I said, no, the kitchen closed. I wasn't able to get my dinner in time, so I haven't had anything to eat. And he said, well, what would you like? And I told him, and he left, and he came in with my dinner. He carried it. Now, a lot of times they would just tell the nurse, get him some dinner, but he came in his own way. I think he was taking care of me, and I felt that, and it was, man, it just really hit me, and I was so grateful for a doctor that cared, a doctor that showed some compassion, and that really treated me like I was important and that we were going to get through this. And just those combination of things really instilled this hope inside of me. And I was so grateful for that. So I finally got out of the hospital. Actually, the next morning I was able to go home. And that's all I wanted. The only thing I wanted was to be home. That's what I wanted. And they released me the next day, and I was able to walk into my house. And everybody, you have a feeling when you walk into your house. You know what I'm talking about. It's a feeling of safety. It's a feeling of comfort. It's the feeling of joy. All of those things. All of those things is what I wanted. And I felt that when I went in. I have my own chair. I sat down in my chair. You probably have a chair or a couch or someplace you like to sit. There's nothing like being in your home, in your spot, to feel comfortable and to feel safe. And that's all I wanted. And that's what I had. And then we just, from there we had to make a plan. It was kind of interesting. This was kind of interesting too. So the doctor says to me that night, he says, now, Terry, do you have an oncologist that you would like to go to? And I thought to myself, who has an oncologist until they need one? I kind of thought that was a little bit funny. I thought, no, you know what? I've never thought about having an oncologist. I've never picked one out. I don't know any. I don't have they're not programmed in my phone. No. And so he said, okay, we're going to help you with that. And but I thought that was kind of a humorous thing. But yeah, so from there it was, going through, the treatment plan that my oncologist would give me. And I'm going to talk a little bit more of that in another episode, because I think there's some things that I really want you to hear, and that really instill hope inside of us as we go through, times like this. And we all will, or we'll know somebody very close. But the other thing that happened, and another reason why I'm here, and one of the reasons we named this podcast, if you will, the show, Unyielding Hope, is because of this magazine right here. So this is somebody that I know, the owner of this magazine. She also owns a shop called The Wellness Bar. And it's a place that we go to. She's a friend of ours. I happened to be her business coach for a while. And so anyways, they call me out of the blue and they said, hey, Terry, we would love to do an article for you on the Wellness magazine and feature you on the cover. And I thought to myself, well, clearly you have not been keeping up with my journey, because I'm not the picture of wellness right now. So I kind of thought it was a little bit humorous. And I said, listen, are you sure? And I shared with them briefly the journey that I'd been on and where I was at. And I thought for sure they would say, well, maybe we'll wait till you recover and see what that's like. But no, they said, no, I think even more we want to do that. And I was really surprised and I was grateful. And so they came in and they did this interview. And they just talked to me about my childhood, growing up, and just, some of the things I experienced coming from a broken home, abusive father, a father that abandoned us, learning disabilities where I couldn't read or write very well. And I couldn't read or write beyond the 6th grade level when I graduated high school. And just all these things that came together that gave me a lot of insecurities, lack of confidence, no direction for my life. And it was, they just kind of talked about that, and then, getting married and all this kind of stuff. And they just kind of captured my story. And so I was excited to see how they put this article together. And when it came out, and I never thought of this about myself, but when it came out, the title was Unyielding Hope. Because one of the questions they asked me is, Terry, how did you get through all of this stuff? And you'll hear some of this stuff in future episodes. How did you get through all this? And here's what I said. For whatever reason, I have had hope that no matter what I was going through, no matter where I was in my life, that things were going to get better. I didn't know how. I didn't have a way. I didn't have a roadmap, but I just felt like just around the corner, it's going to get better, just around the corner. And so I've always been somebody that's had hope for the future. And when that came out, Unyielding Hope, I thought that is going to be the name of the show that we're going to do. And that's the thing and that I want to be able to give to people. You know, I'm a business coach, I'm a trainer, I'm a speaker, I do those things. And people have asked me, you know, how do you know that you've made a difference? And one of the things I tell them is when I sit down with somebody that, you know, is in a crisis or doesn't have clarity about moving forward, whether it's in their business or personal life or whatever, when we get done with the meeting and they look at me and they say, Terry, I have hope. I feel like I've done my job, but more importantly, I fulfilled my calling. You know, my personal mission statement is to help you win in work and life. That really is. It's a thing that I get up for every single day. It's a thing I focus on. It's a thing I think about. And it's the opportunities I look for is to help you win in work and life every single day. And so when someone looks at me and says, I have hope now, whether it's from a keynotes talk or it's a training that I've done, or like I said, coaching, when I hear that, I just feel like I'm fulfilling the purpose for which I'm on this earth. And this is what I really want this podcast or this show to be for you. That as you tune in, you'll hear some things, whether it's myself, sometimes we're going to have guests. I'm hoping to have my wife because you will love Nancy. Those of you watching this that know her, you know what I'm talking about. You will love Nancy. But I'll have some guests that have gone through similar things. And the goal is to share our collective stories, the things that we've learned and how we've moved forward. We might hear about other people that have inspired us. We might have something that we've gone through, whether it's a training or a reading or a book or something that's inspired us, that's given us the strength to move on. I'm going to bring something up here. That's what I'm doing here. So excuse me just for a minute. So I want to read this. This is a definition of unyielding. And it says, if it's a mass or a structure that's unyielding, it says not giving way to pressure, hard or solid. So that's what it is. However, if it's a person, or their behavior, it says that they're unlikely to be swayed, they're resolute. They have this unyielding faith that gives them determination, that allows them to face obstacles and setbacks and disappointments and failures and yet keep going. You know, I've had people say, and you've probably heard this too, hey, hope's not a strategy. And I've said that before because it's not. But here's what it is. Hope is the most powerful motivator for mankind. To have hope, to have this belief, to have faith in something, that it's going to get better, that we can get through this, that there is something better just around the corner. This is hope, and that unyielding hope that it doesn't get swayed, it doesn't change, it hangs in there, it's solid, it won't be swayed. That's what we're talking about. And so, you know, our goal, especially with this first episode, is just lay the groundwork, lay some of the background for a little bit about who I am and what this is going to be about. So I am excited for future episodes and to be able to share some things from my own life, again, guests, about life, hardship, challenges, overcoming. That's what we want, overcoming those kinds of things. And to give you some practical things that you can walk away with, that you can implement, put into your life, and you can see them make a difference, not only in you, but also then through you to other people. So that's what this is all about. This is the kickoff. This is why we're here. This is why we're doing what we're doing. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. So until then, keep the faith, and fight for unyielding hope. Hey, thanks a lot for tuning in. I'd love to hear from you, so talk to me. Share your questions, your stories, your circumstances, and most importantly, share your experiences of unyielding hope. And please share this with your friends, your family, or anyone else that you think could benefit or be encouraged. I'm Terry Gurno, and this has been Unyielding Hope. Thank you for tuning in.